Very, very happy. My everything and people happy. Really, really happy. Sí, 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 pero él no. Pero va a intentar. No, no, intentar, sí, sí. No, no. No, no pasa. No, muy contento que se han estado muy interesante con él. Creo que está en un nivel de profundidad, llegando a acciones súper concretas. Es decir, esto es una acción concreta. Entonces, nada, se fue muy bien.
Okay, yeah, let's all work with ground one.
Si quieres. Ladies and gentlemen, there to be one on one.
I'm coming.
No, 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 no. No, la gente la alegría no nos pasa por lo que siempre.
Okay, why not? Yeah. Assolutamente.
Voilà.
Sarah, c'est quoi l'ordre de présentation? L'ordre de présentation.
Merci. C'était pour information. Ça te convient? Je vais chanter. Je prends le son du rôle. Moi, je suis bien quand je
Oui, il y a poésie. Et un poésie. Oui.
Il y en a deux. Tu peux donner le lieu.
Je suis exactement au milieu de tout, donc je peux utiliser le écran.
Well, not yet, but no, you can't.
Words?
Because the considering myself, again, yourself, and
Okay. So this one's working. You want this one?
This one, yeah, okay, good. Oh, good. Right. So, hello everyone. We're absolutely thrilled to have you on this panel dedicated to the role of higher education and research institution facing climate change. So, we have a wonderful and diverse panel today that I have the chance of introducing. And following that, all of them will have 5 to 7 minutes in order to introduce three subtopics that we will be addressing today, and after followed by questions and answers and a more general conversation. So first of all, I'm happy to introduce Jana Al-Ramahi. So she's a bachelor student in politics at Edinburgh University. We have next to her François Gélineau, who is vice rector at Université Laval, in charge of international affairs and sustainable development, followed by Agustina, who is a director for development at the Philanthropy Corte Solari, Sylvain Antoniotti, who is vice rector for the Initiative of Excellence at Université Côte d'Azur, and last but not least, Agathe Euzen, deputy director at CNRS Ecology and Environment Institute. So, with no further ado, I would like to give the floor to Sylvain Antoniotti, who will be first addressing three of the subtopics that we will be addressing today.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome on this panel. So I have the privilege to start this conversation. We should talk about that for hours because it's such an important topic with important impacts. And as was said previously during the week by another professor in academia, we can take the microphone and talk for hours. So I will try to limit myself because I know that we have 5 to 7 minutes to start this discussion about the role of higher education institution to address this topic. And I will maybe pick some example in what we did in our university to face that type of challenges, and also try to look forward to what we should do in the future. And then also with the input of my fellow panelists, we will have this discussion enlarged, I'm sure. First, I can give you that experience that we had at Université Côte d'Azur is that in 2020, we completely transformed the university and we moved from a model which we can qualify as a conventional model for universities, having a disciplinary approach, either in education and research with faculty, for example, and we transform all that, turning into graduate schools for research and education. And those grade schools are mostly thematic than disciplinary. So this was the first move, and we introduced interdisciplinary approaches in all the activities of the university, education, research, innovation, and so on. And another idea was to increase the relationships between research and education, make sure that the latest discoveries and knowledge is made available to the students as fast as possible. So that's the first example in the idea that addressing global challenges like climate change, but we have been talking a lot during the week of sustainability in general. And we have seen in the details of discussions in various panels that it's not only focusing on carbon emission, because there's some lateralities, there's some side impacts and implication. And so you have to look at the problem globally, threat on biodiversity, issues of local populations, pollution in general, waste generation, sobriety of use of resources, and so on. And another action that we perform is that we created academies of excellence, which are also built to um, uh, to make sure that people from different backgrounds and from different fields will find a place to meet, to exchange, and to build collaborative research, even within our university. And those academies of excellence are typically designed to foster interdisciplinary research, mixing engineer science and social science, for example, but not only, and also to look at transdisciplinary research. I won't have the time to lecture about the differences between multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, but transdisciplinary is when you can look at a complex problem, kind of forgetting about your background and the set of rules of your own disciplinary background, and to maybe design new set of knowledge, new rules to address a global problem. That's also something very important. As a third example, maybe on that, and after I think I will pass the mic, we have been also stimulating student engagement. So we have designed a program which is actually managed by our engagement center, when students can get credits in their curriculum if they engage into actions that are selected by the office, and that those type of action also reflect their desire and their aspirations to be much more active on very big topics like climate change and environmental concerns in general. So that's going to be it for the moment.
Thank you very much. So next in line, François Génineau will keep with institutional representation.
Thank you, Saran. So I'm François Lino. I'm glad to be here. It's a great opportunity to discuss about very important issues. I'm a bit undisciplined, so I prepared a bit differently. I'm not so much going to talk about what we have done at Université Laval, but I'm going to make a couple observations and a couple of calls for action. Interestingly, there's plenty of things I could say about Laval, and don't hesitate to ask me afterwards. I'll be happy to talk about them. So here are my two observations. The first one is that, as you know, despite the fact that we have strong scientific consensus on climate change, many opinion leaders and decision makers are still questioning what has been established as facts. It's not only true for environmental and climate change, but it's especially problematic in the area. It is because it has negative implications for policy making. It also affects the social acceptability of these measures. All this creates a vicious circle that reduces significantly our ability to act promptly. That was my first observation. My second observation is that many academics are involved both directly and indirectly in the COP process and in climate action more broadly. They mostly are implicated as individual. Is this better? Yes. Most of these researchers are implicated in these actions as individual researchers, as I was saying. Some are involved in the negotiation process along with their government, but most are there, like us today, as member of the civil society. Students are also present at the COPs, as we have one right beside me. But more often than not, they're paying for their own expenses on their personal budget. Few institutions, university institutions, I mean, have specific strategies to support the participation of their researchers and students. That leads me to two calls for action. The first one is I believe academics have to engage in science diplomacy. Researchers have to come out of their proverbial ivory tower. Academics have a responsibility, I believe, to take part in public debates. Some do, many do actually, but several fear the social media storms that accompany many public declarations on their research. Academics also need to make their science available for decision makers. We have an initiative in Quebec, which is very interesting, which is the International Francophone Network on Scientific Advisory. It is funded and coordinated by the Quebec chief scientist, and the network has two, and it regroups scholars from Quebec universities, but also for international universities, all of them francophones. The network's objectives are to establish the state of available knowledge on a given issue through a multidisciplinary approach. First and second, it's to act as a broker and establish a dialogue between science and policy, exposing decision makers to current scientific consensus and assisting them in integrating scientific knowledge in the decision making process. That was my first call for action. My second call for action is that I believe universities, as actors, as institutions, actors of change, they must engage in climate action more aggressively. Beyond finding innovative solutions through research, or beyond empowering students through teaching, and beyond acting as responsible corporate citizens, because we all do these things in universities. I believe we should go further. Universities, they need to provide support to their researchers and students for them to play a meaningful role, help them to engage in scientific diplomacy, provide them with support to participate in events that are not purely research activities. A university faculty member that has, in universities, we believe that faculty members have three main functions: research, teaching, and public service. Public service, unfortunately, is often not sufficiently prioritized. University can also play a role as transformative agents. Building on the scientific consensus they help generate, they must make representations to their governments and multilateral agencies. They should also act as leaders within their communities, engaging other organizations or corporations in adopting sustainable corporate behavior that are based on science. And finally, I believe universities must coordinate their efforts with other universities, and I think Sylvain alluded to that. In the end, I don't think any actor holds the single solution to the climate crisis. Universities, like government, like corporations, or multinationals, have their role to play. And just like every other actor, the current situation commands that universities explore ways of doing a little bit more and maybe much more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe that this was music to your ears, Agustina, and and we'll further develop on that a little later on. But before that, I would like to give the floor to Agathe Uzen.
Thank you. So thank you for the invitation. I just like to present you the CNRS, the French National Scientific Research. We are 33,000 researchers, and it's about more than 1,100 units who develop some research in the spectrum of topics, disciplinary and different approaches. And then the CNRS covered a broad spectrum of research field through 10 units in biology, chemistry, ecology and environment, humanities and social sciences, engineering and systems, mathematics, nuclear and practical physics, information sciences, and earth and science and astronomy. And we can say that climate questions are France Institute. We developed some research in many institutions with different interdisciplinary approach. And we have a lot of collaboration and partnership with the University de Côte d'Azur, with University of Laval, and many of others. And we also have some different collaboration and partnership with socioeconomic and industrial sectors. Regarding our commitments, so we have 6 scientific priorities to respond to the societal challenges. And then you can see where one of them is focusing on climate change. And if we focus on climate change, we have a lot of methods, tools, infrastructure, large instruments to observe, to better understand the present and past climate. And we developed some experimentation, modelization, just to be able to analyze the capacity of the socio-ecosystem to adapt or not, and to help some policies to develop some new strategies for the adaptation and attenuation. And we also study the different impacts from the from climate change and global change to biodiversity, agriculture, territory, cities, as tourism, and so on. And for us, it's very important to mobilize all of the disciplines to be able to have a global approach, systemic approach, and holistic consideration, just to be able to understand the complexity of the Earth system and to be able to give some information and to help societies, policymakers to develop their adaptation and policies in their territories. And we can say that the research developed in CNRS by our researchers in collaboration with the university are one of the major contributors to the IPCC report. So it's revealed the quality of our research and the necessity to continue to do that. And it's one of our examples that CNRS co-pilots 32 big programs, national program, and some of them are completely directly concerned by climate. For example, the question of water, the One Water program, I'm co-lead it, so I'm very proud to do that. And also for nature-based solution, Solubiode, or tracks directly focusing on climate, or Fair Carbon, which is a question of CO2 captation, and so on. And this big national program will involve all the scientific community just to find new response and new solution for accelerating transition. And then we develop different tools and to focus on different public our knowledge and the information. But as establishments, we also have our responsibility, just be part to reduce our greenhouse gas balance. So after to analyze our footprint, we decide to have different actions, and then to awareness the staff and to give them some information and to help them to change their practices, and also in the different construction. And we're focusing on four: mobility, energy, digital, and public purchasing, just to participate and to reduce our our impact as CNRS infrastructure for the climate. And then we will contribute also in the SDGs because we have to concern and to do the link between climate and all of the SDGs and to have a global approach. So thank you.
So 7 minutes exactly. So we've been hearing about those that represent higher education and research institutions, so what they've been doing, their observation maybe to do better and differently. And now we're going to be hearing about two other interesting outputs. The first one will be actually the output of a student, as a bachelor student in a university called University of Edinburgh. She is studying politics, so she might be actually the future person who will be taking the decisions. So yes, please go ahead.
Today, I'm honored to discuss the vital role of higher education and research institutes in combating climate change, particularly focusing in policy advocacy and collaboration. The main pillars of this are educational commitment, innovation in research, and sustainable practices. And as a student in the University of Edinburgh, I'm privileged to say that with educational commitment, we embrace interdisciplinary approaches as seen with our Masters of Science program in carbon management. This program is pivotal in educating and empowering students to understand and address the climate issues. It exemplifies how we blend disciplines like science, economics, and policy to offer a comprehensive understanding of climate change. Also, in our university, we also encourage students' involvement in climate-related forums, fostering a culture of active participation and awareness. The second pillar, innovation and research, the University of Edinburgh leads in groundbreaking research areas in renewable energy and sustainable urban planning. For instance, our work in developing more efficient solar panels and studying the impact of urbanization on climate change has garnered international attention. This research not only advances our academic understanding, but also translates into practical and scalable solutions that are implemented globally. The last pillar is sustainable practices. The university commitment to sustainability is evident in every aspect of our campus operations. We've embraced energy efficient buildings designs and comprehensive waste management systems, significantly reducing our carbon footprint. Our campus serves as a living lab for sustainability, where every student and staff member is a participant in these eco-friendly initiatives. Our active engagement in policy advocacy leverages our research and expertise to influence environmental legislation. We've been part of discussions and forums shaping policy decisions at both national and international levels. Our participation in alliances like the International Alliance of Research Universities demonstrates our commitment to global cooperation in climate research and policy formulation. As a delegate representing the University of Edinburgh at COP28, I've witnessed firsthand impactful role of higher education play in shaping international climate policies. Our collective voice and research expertise are instrumental in advising delegations and influencing the summit's outcomes. While our achievements are significant, the challenges we face are substantial. Bridging the gap between research and policy implementations remain a daunting task. Translating complex scientific data into accessible, policy-friendly formats is an ongoing struggle. Looking ahead, the University of Edinburgh aims to further integrate sustainability into all aspects of university life and increase our research impact on global climate policy. Overall, through education, research, and sustainability practices and policy advocacy, institutions like the University of Edinburgh are not just participating but leading the fight against climate change. We stand at a pivotal moment in history where the actions we take today will define our future. Let us continue together, harnessing the power of education and research to create a sustainable world for generations to come. Thank you.
So François earlier on was actually mentioning that universities should encourage their students and make it possible for them to participate to science diplomacy action. I think that we all understand why now that we have listened to Jenna. And last but not least, I would like to give the floor to Agustina from Philanthropy Corte Solari.
Thank you very much. I like being the last to speak so that I can get grasp a little bit of what you were mentioning. Philanthropy Corte Solari is a 22-year-old institution who started on doing educational projects. We can have the president here and founder, Francisca Corte Solari, who started out with a few kids in the ground, in the field, basically going after nature, because that's the way we understand education mainly. And we are an action-driven institution. What that means that we are look for impact. Whatever the project we are talking about, could be whales, could be culture, could be education. That's what we are aiming for. And for that, we are aiming also to look for great partners as institution, academy, etc. As a philanthropic institution, we have the liberty to get different stakeholders together in the table to discuss different topics. In the educational ground, we have moved forward the educational areas on different grounds, on different topics, such as integral education, social emotional education, cultural education, and of course, environmental education, which is, as you mentioned, a topic which is transversal. You cannot think of education or talk about education without going into that ground. So we have gathered different experiences and expertise on gathering together decision makers, academy as well, and to get them into talking about how can we move forward in this paradigm shift in education that we are aiming and looking for, which includes, of course, climate change education. And we have put together different roundtables in order to talk about these topics. And let me say that we are very gladly that the outcome was basically very, very good. And we are looking forward to organizing that once a year with different stakeholders and different partners to talk about these topics, and also incorporate what's the ancestral knowledge and what they can bring to the table in terms of climate change. Because as Francisca mentions, it's us or it's the decision makers, the ones who are going to be asking them how to move forward and how to deal with nature, because it's them, the ones who are going to be saying how we have to do it to decision makers. And let me point out that when we talk about decision makers, we don't only have in mind a ministry. We also have in mind people from the academy, a rector, vice rector, a director of certain school who has to deal with these topics and they don't know how. So in that term, we organized different conferences on education. We have been organizing that around for 3 years now in Latin America and the Caribbean in order to bring together best practices, always taking care of the territorial approach, of course, so that any best practice can come together and can be taken by another decision maker who has sort of to deal with the same issue in order to understand how they can deal with this. So that's something we're really proud of. And of course, we are looking forward to organizing any of these events together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before we, is it working?
Yep.
So before we open up to question from the audience, actually, I'm the worst moderator ever because my question is going to go to Jana, and it is, do you have a question to our panelists?
I have one question. What is uh, the next step for institutions for climate action?
So maybe everyone can actually provide an answer, 2-3 minutes per panelist, and we can start with Sylvain.
Okay, thank you for the question. Next step, from what we heard from several panelists today and even previously, what we should consider as university and François Gélineau said, getting out of our ivory tower, finding some places where we can have multilateral conversations with people with different views, different background, different desire. We had this panel a few days ago with people from the mining industry, where they provide materials for all the other industry, and they will be important in the technology shift to renewable energy. So we would like our university, to be out of the campuses and to go into this area where we can interact with the whole society. This is something we should do more. Maybe something more than that is that if you look at the amount of knowledge we have generated for decades, it looks like we are sleeping on a gold mine. And this amount of knowledge doesn't get transferred as fast as it should in the society, in industry, in the companies that will be able to use it to design solutions. So we think we have to think about that also and reform ourselves. There is an initiative worldwide, which is the COARA initiatives, where we want to transform the assessment of research. And we need also to do our transformation and shift from a bibliometric impact research to a real life impact research. This is also something we have to do ourselves. And we have to take our students with us. It's obvious the role of university is the training of students. The role of the university is to generate knowledge, is to participate to tech transfer and innovation. But here it's particularly important because young people, they are much more aware of all these issues than we are, even if we are participating in that shift. And I think that every year we have a new class of fresh students that is coming to our universities. So their mentality is moving faster than transforming the mentalities of older people like me. Even if I'm well aware of the situation, it goes faster by using the youth people. So that's maybe two things I can share with you at the moment on that topic.
Could I go next?
Yes, of course you can go.
Thank you. Because I would like to take something that you mentioned that I think it's really important. That it's we are sitting in a mine of gold. That's exactly what it is. I think that we have so many data. Have so many information, and now the next step to answer your question, Jenna, is getting to know. I mean, make everybody knows that. Everybody needs to know what the researchers have been through and what they know, so that and that's why, and that's one of the missions that we as Philanthropy Cortés Solari have, to be at the service of, of that information, of making everyone know that information. That's why media is so important, and that's why we are trying to bring media also to these roundtables that I was mentioning before, because it's them a very good spots, to let this information be accessible to everybody, I guess.
Thank you, François.
Sorry. That's a very good question. During the last year at Université Laval, we did our strategic planning, and during the consultations, at some point, some people told us, I'll roughly translate it into English, but they told us the university should cross the streets and come into the city instead of being a university. You know, a university is a very conservative institution. We do things like we've been doing for hundreds of years, and it's a niche that is very specialized. Researchers have one priority, which is doing research that is pertinent and is useful for knowledge. As I said earlier, the public service aspect of it, which is the transfer towards society, is not a given. It's not a given. Some do it fantastically, but some don't. And we need to walk them through that new business that we all think is absolutely necessary. The question is how to do it. And we need to find different ways and be innovative in the ways we actually push our students and our faculty members to do things differently. So we need to challenge the ways we do things, and we need to be innovative. Um, and just as an ending note, in Castilla Laval, we've been involved in sustainable development for over 20 years. And 20 years ago, next year, we actually changed our programs of study regulation. And we gave ourselves the obligation to expose students in every bachelor's program to the principles of sustainable development. To this day, it's not an obligation we entirely satisfy, to be fair. But that was the paradigm 20 years ago. We needed to force ourselves to do things in order to make things move. Today, during the same strategic planning that I alluded to over the past year, we saw students that told us, and faculty members, what can I do? How can I do it? How can I contribute to this momentum? So we need to act because the opportunity is real and it's present.
Thank you. Agathe?
Thank you. So I think first we need more knowledge, and we have to continue to sustain scientific studies and to have some specific approach and to have a transversality approach. And then, okay, we have to think on how to bridge the gap between scientists and society and industry and policymakers. I think we have to change our mind and maybe to be more and more on co-construction, and then to decide together which are the big challenges and where are the knowledge. Do we have all of the knowledge or not, and how can we do to develop to better understand the question? And if we are at the beginning together around the table, then it could be maybe more easier to appropriate for each of us the problem of the other. And then we will be able to probably give some response more adapted to be integrated in the different policies. So it's one of the questions. And the other one is just to have the contact with the young people and the young generation, because it's our hope. We need to more and more just to facilitate for the youth to learn about specific disciplines, just to be very strong about that, and also to be able to have a big view and to be able to discuss with other disciplines, to integrate some information, to go step by step and to have a vision on the future. Just to integrate the global aspect and to transform your question with your singular approach, and then to develop a new knowledge which is based on the different knowledge, from empirical to measure knowledge and so on. So it's some of the information. So, and to develop some capacity building in the different people in the society.
Thank you very much. Jana, are you satisfied with the answers? Yes? Then we, okay. No, so I get you were mentioning that we have to provide the tools and the knowledge for our students to thrive. Some of you have also mentioned how important it was to develop new approaches, new transformational approaches, the strategic planification, but none of you have, for the moment, really addressed how are you involving your students in this transformation process, and how the youth is actually included in this overall transformation. So I don't know who wants to take this question. Yeah.
Ours is not a university as yours, but we do work with youth, also with the whole educational community, not only with youth. We started out with youth, and we've been working with youth for a long time, for almost 20 years, until pandemia came, and we focused a little bit more on teachers. But it's been an approach that we've done throughout 20 years. But by working with teacher, it was a good approach as well, so as to have the other side of the coin, and basically understand what their needs, in order to address and deliver to the kids and to youth what their new needs are. So it was a very good circle, so as to get a little bit of distance and understand what the teachers were needing, so as to deliver better. And in that sense, I understand what you say, that you need to stop, take a think, research, and then understand and deliver properly, more efficient in that way. And that's the way we've been approaching this topic.
I'll answer the question, but I'd like to open just a little parenthesis about what has been said earlier. Um, we said that the university must move towards policymakers and the society, open up, translate its knowledge into understandable and implication-based knowledge. Um, a relationship goes two ways, right? And we need corporates, companies, decision makers to be open to collaborating with universities. One of our major strengths in university is that we have a world with, I'd say, almost no constraints. That is, we do research. We think about issues, and we recreate the conditions like we want them to be, and we're able to test different things without the constraints that a corporation will have, without the constraints that a government has. So that's the way we can innovate in ways that companies can't necessarily do it. Some maybe, but so we're able to we're a living lab to a certain extent, and that's a major benefit. And I think we should find ways to convey that to governments and companies, so they work more and more with us. To answer the question about how do we involve youth, there's two things we've been doing at Université Laval. The first one is in 2019, we tried to launch, but we ended up launching it after the pandemic, a what we called UNICI, Universities for Climate. It's a group of students that we accompany in building their leadership skills towards climate change. So currently, it's a consortium of about 10 universities that share the governments, and it's a program that is open to any students that want to join. And we offer different workshops and training programs, short term, for students to gain these leadership skills, to transform their anger, their discomfort with climate change, and into concrete actions. So we're really proud of that, and I think that's the way of implicating them, because they dictate where we go with that. We respond to their demands. The other thing we've launched earlier this fall is a climate action fund, which is funded by partners, partly by the university and partly by corporate partners, in order to fund initiatives that come from our community, including, of course, the students. Initiatives that will help individuals go further in climate actions, and it's open to all sorts of there's no limits. So people will be able to propose different projects, and we'll evaluate them and fund them and accompany them into realizing these initiatives.
Thank you. Yes, just maybe to add something about youth. What youth are we talking about? We are talking at the moment of the youth which is already in our universities, but we need also to talk about access to higher educations. And that's a big issue. It's an issue we have locally. It's an issue we have worldwide to different magnitude. We know that in some places, there is a very urgent need for awareness of climate change issues and provide the youth with scientific information. So access to higher education is something very important to enlarge actually the number of youth people involved in our trainings and education programs. We do locally something also to get people coming from supposed poor neighborhoods, because we think they don't belong to the world of higher education, because socially they didn't have example at home of getting a degree from a higher education program. And we also get these kids, and we are trying to show them that they can actually pursue a training in a university.
Thank you. So, do you want to go? Yeah. Yeah.
Just to add, so we have the responsibility to support the different youth initiative also. Some of them, so just say, stop, I want just to do something for the climate and so on. And they develop different strategy, but individual strategy and very impulsive strategy. Our responsibility is to give them so the main information that they have to build together the strategy to have a good way and not to have a bad adaptation posture. So I think it's very, very important to have a global perspective for a common society and to give them all of the tools and the data and the to have a good understanding of the process. Because sometimes they have like a schizophrenic approach. They have their iPhone and they say, no, I don't want to, but you have your iPhone and you are in this society. So we have to continue to live and to have a well life, but how to do that and to against the climate. So it's just it's our responsibility also.
So going a little bit further on with youth, but this time on other stakeholders, and especially, so a lot of you mentioned how you work with non-academic partners and especially industries. Maybe one or two of you have a specific example of success stories where you were able of working with the private sector. Yeah. So just two, and then we'll take questions from the public or interventions from the public.
Maybe it's more interesting to have questions from the public, because we can continue to talk for hours. I can give this example.
Thank you all, first of all.
It works.
Yeah, thank you all, first of all, for your intervention. It's a very interesting topic, and I have a question in that sense. We know that university, I wouldn't say that they compete, but obviously science is very complicated. It's very deep knowledge. So somewhere there is a natural competition for the research, the final result of the research that prove that you make good or not research. And that's conspire in a certain sense with the need of deploy a more easy way to understand the science from the other sector of the society. So I was wondering if maybe it's not a matter of how how do we work inside, not only at the university but the school, how do the education is working around itself, and if we have to work another structure in order to maybe force a little bit our students at university to work very closely of the university and maybe I'm not saying not to go further in the science because it's really needed, but at the same time understand the very local problems that community has. I don't know. What do you think about that? It's an open question.
First of all, I'm not sure I'd like to go back to your first statement, which is we compete for research results. I think we compete for resources, but we work very well together, the university with researchers. But we have scarce resources. So if we want to do good research, we need resources, and there's not enough for everyone. So we're struck with a lot of competition. Um, but we need to develop the ability to collaborate and collaborate outside of academia as well, and we do it. We just launched this September a master's degree. It's a professional master's, a 1-year program in climate action. It's a program that is fundamentally multidisciplinary. It's done in partnership with corporation and organizations that fund different projects, and the students will actually be exposed to a few core courses, and then we'll go through a team of faculty members from different disciplines in forestry and at the medical school, and they will work at resolving a problem that has been presented by a partner organization or corporation, and that will be the essence of the master's degree. And they will do it in teams with students from different horizons. So, as I said earlier, we're trying to challenge ourselves to do things differently and open up. uh, Academia is not just about producing university faculty, especially since Sylvain alluded to the fact that we need to attract more and more students into universities, not to generate new faculty members for future generation. Of course, we want to do that. We want to produce new faculty professors and researchers, high level researchers, but we also want to educate people at a higher level. And such programs, I think, will help us reach that goal and work closely with partners.
Thank you. I don't know if someone wants to answer very briefly, and otherwise we'll take one last question and we'll have to wrap up. So no answers here. Any other question in the audience? Yeah.
My question is, how are you bridging the gap between what's been done by the researchers in the universities and what's been done by the practitioners for policy? Because researchers tend to do research for research's sake in terms of what is interesting. That's not necessarily relevant to what the policymakers need in terms of science informing policy.
Thank you.
I
So,
can start.
yeah.
And thank you for the question. It also it's related to something we discussed in the early minutes of this panel, and maybe trying to address your question, part of your question, and your question at the same time with the same answer, because we have 1 minute left.
1 minute.
We need to organize places where we can actually bridge these gaps. So meeting policymakers, as you said, and being able to transfer some information and also to receive some information from them. It goes the same with working with private partners or industries. In the past, researchers were in the lab and they wanted money. So each time they were meeting someone from the industry, they say, give me some money. It doesn't work. In some other cases, the researcher explained the research, and the guy from industry say, I don't understand what I can do with that information. I don't see the innovation. And if the people from industry express their needs, it doesn't translate into something that the researcher can do. This is the ancient model. The new model is to have a dialogue and being able to understand the needs of the industry, but also of the society in general, of the stakeholders in case of a negotiation, for example, in the COP. And also being able to explain our knowledge. It was something that was maybe underlying the conversation we had earlier. We have that knowledge, we need more knowledge, but we have a lot of knowledge. We need to be able to explain that. And then goes the idea of scientific diplomacy that was also introduced by François Gélineau earlier.
Okay, so last concluding comment, and then we will have to wrap.
Yeah, we have some tools that we have, so all of the people in around the table. For example, in France, in different region, there is a climate researcher, and with interdisciplinary approach, they are in group in the region, and they discuss with all of the stakeholders in this region regarding the evolution of and trajectories of the climate. And then together they discuss regarding the knowledge of the evolution of the climate in this region, and then they try to build together the best policy to adapt them. That's the first one. And the second one is we have also some place and some kind of research who are focusing on the socio-ecosystem approaches and so involve all the stakeholders in a river basin, for example, and they discuss about different data who researchers collect from a long time, and then they can see also the evolution as a trajectory, the impact of the anthropogenic pressure on the ecosystem. And then they are able just to have a new trajectory and to adapt some policies regarding the evolution of the territories and their activities.
So I think that Francois had a last comment. So I will keep my concluding remark for myself in order to let the panel finish.
I think it's a balancing act. We can't do only research that is policy driven, and I think it would be unacceptable to do only non-conditional research. But we have to remember that some of the major breakthroughs in history came out of non-conditional research. So a bit of both is important. Now it's how to find the balance between the two. And that's why I think I agree with Sylvain. We need to establish a dialogue with governments and policymakers.
Okay, I think that we will really have to conclude. So thank you once again for all our wonderful panelists. Thank you, a special thank you to our students. And we will stay around to answer eventually questions.